Welcome to the Keptn developer meeting today. And we have a couple of topics and PRs to present today. Let's just start in the agenda on top. Does anyone have anything to say about Keptn 0.8, or should we move that to next week? Okay, I think we'll move it. Okay, whatever happened here. No, all right. Then Andreas just mentioned that Niklas was here a second ago. Is he here again? Yeah. Niklas, I'll promote you to panelist. So you should be able to talk and to share your screen. Niklas has contributed a way such that we can use Brew to install the Keptn CLI on macOS. And maybe Niklas, if you just want to share your screen or if you want to show something, the stage is yours. And
okay, no, I'm muted. Okay, so fine.
Very nice background. I like it.
Thanks. And during Christmas, I think it was start to work on the feature mostly that we want to use. I wanted to start to work with Keptn, but I found it not so intuitive to get the Keptn CLI on Mac. So I don't want to download the binary. So I thought probably my camera isn't focusing. Okay, don't worry. Of that, then I started to work on probably, okay, I thought most people on Mac using Homebrew to install all her binaries. So I thought that, okay, let's try how Homebrew is working and how I can create probably a formula for that. And I can now share my screen a little bit. I will go to the pull request and explain a little bit about how Homebrew is working. Probably I will also switch to the page what it is. Give me one more minute. Edge. And now I need to, okay, everything. Brew. And now I will share my screen a little bit. So I'll find the correct one. Yeah. Probably you see now the page of Homebrew Lily. And currently we had the idea to, as I mentioned, the pull request with Christian. Christian was, probably we could do it also to do it in our own tab, but he found a better idea to use it from the public so everyone can easily install it. So for that, it's really easy to use it. So for example, when you are now on the Homebrew page, you can also check for Keptn directly because it's now included into the upstream. So, and there you can hopefully see the formula for which bottles are in. Funny point about Homebrew is that it uses mostly a lot of terms from brewing beer and all this stuff because we're having taps, we're having bottles, and also we have a cast and a cellar. And for that, it was really fun. Mostly after I know okay how to apply a formula to that, I started to work on that. So for that case, a homebrew file is literally like a Ruby file. You can also see that an RB in it. And mostly what you can do, like with every other package manager, you can define how you want to get your binaries. And when I hope so, okay. And when, let me check. And really, the command to create the whole formula was very straightforward in the beginning. So you can easily do a brew create, and what Homebrew will then do for you is really to fetch all the important changes for the binary. So it will try to fetch the information, the all the stuff. Currently, it says no, it already exists because currently Homebrew will include this into your current core, so it will be laying down in your current system. So this is why it's not working anymore right now, but it's not a problem. So afterwards, what it does for Homebrew Create, it will enter automatically the URL. It gives you the char of the binary, and then I decided, okay, how we want to use this. Instead of consuming the finished binary, we start to building the binary locally on the system when you type brew install on your machine, literally. So that means we have the dependency from Go, and then afterwards I type the standard build command literally to build the CLI. It's quite different. What it's not normal on the stuff is because in the Keptn CLI we have the monorepo, so we will switch to the CLI path here, and afterwards we're going into the part that we are building the binary. And what is really cool, and what I didn't know before that, it's required for the upstream if you want to contribute anything to Go, to Homebrew, is that you also need to provide a test. So in terms of that, we need to verify that our binary is working. And for that, I started out and looking how it could be working. So I used a simple match. So I start first the Keptn version on my terminal. So it will be the same literally when you typing that. So it's the same command like this, and probably okay. Yeah, because it needs to access something. Keys to password. Yeah, so literally it's the same command, and then what I do is afterwards I start to check so that the output is the same. Literally afterwards, this was not enough from the maintainers. They said, okay, you need to test also the functionality a little bit more. And for that, I started the binary again with the status flag. And then I decided to check the exit code. Literally, it's not good practice to have exit code 0 when an error is happening, because it's hard to understand why it's working, why it's not working. But this was the change that I need to do. Mostly that was it. So right now, every Keptn user can now easily say that you can brew. Probably I need to do reinstall Keptn. And now it will fetch the bottle directly. So the source code in this term, and now it starts to reinstalling it. So it will updating the seller files, probably caching also. And now I have Keptn again on the latest version that's currently in the homebrew. And for the future, there could be some more improvements on that. So we could use GitHub Actions to automatically update the formula so that no one needs to handle all the stuff again. And yeah, mostly also Go Releaser works for that. So you could probably also use Go Releaser. Yeah, and this was the path literally to work with the homebrew stuff.
Nice, thanks a lot. We have a couple of Mac users like Florian and Andreas, so I hope you also learned something here, because this is definitely something that we can do for our tool chain.
Yep.
For
yeah, probably when you want to support more of that, when we want to plan to start the Go releaser, there's also a group package. It's called NFPM, where you can automatically build with the Go releaser all other packages. So like dep packages, RPM, APK, so that you can contribute to all other upstream repositories. And I can also probably help you to get into Alpine, because I did this also the last time. Alpine is also straightforward to include this there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have a look at the Go releaser because I mean I've actually done a lot of work with GitHub Actions the last couple of weeks, so we might end up doing some more stuff if it makes sense. I guess for now, most of the people will be happy with the brew install command and maybe with the quick start and downloading it. But yeah, maybe we can put this just as an issue and define what we want to have in the future. Because right now, I mean, Keptn still has a 0 in front, and I guess
Yeah.
our user base is happy with, or most of our users are happy with the quick start.
Yeah.
But this is definitely the way to go for the future.
I would have one question. So you're compiling the CLI locally. That's true, right?
Yeah.
And this now also allows us allows us to support ARM architectures, which are now used for Macs.
Yeah, this is a problem right now in time of a moment, because Go 1.16 supports only the Apple M1, and Go 16 will be released in terms of February or in the mid of January. It was. So the Go runtime doesn't support right now the M1 stuff. This was the reason why
Okay.
it depending. And I don't know, because there's also when you're looking on all this homebrew stuff, there was also here some, because oh wait, I can go back to the pull request totally.
Yeah, they tested it on the pull request. They added a label or something on it, and they tried it, but yeah, we'll need to wait for Go 1.16.
We have a discussion here, something like that. So we try to build ARM, but then we get really strange errors. So not really strange, but it says CPU info is not available. And I didn't know from which library it was coming from, or if it's a core runtime. So then it seems, but a lot of, because I stumbled about this PR literally, where it mentioned that almost a lot of other Go binaries are also broken regarding that.
Yeah, I think the function that's being called there is coming from containerd or libc or something like that, like really a core functionality that we cannot influence.
Yeah,
I've looked it up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this will but probably when we will get Go 1.16, it will be also available for ARM on Mac. So
nice.
Don't worry.
As far as I know, for now there is an emulation layer that works quite nicely, but I haven't tested it, so
yeah, also mine.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions? If not, we can continue, I guess. Thanks again, Niklas. Also, thanks for presenting. And then I'll just take over. All right. So, yeah, what did I do in the last couple of weeks? One of the things I just mentioned, I've spent a lot of time with GitHub Actions, and we can now finally say rest in peace to Travis CI. Unfortunately, I have to say, because they've just killed their open source support, literally, and there's no way to get in it except for writing like support tickets every week. And I guess it's easier to just switch to a system that works with open source right now. With that, I cannot show you a pull request, but I can just tell you a little bit about, we've done a lot of work to make sure that we don't have to spend the time again if we need to migrate again. So we're trying to make sure everything is in shell or bash scripts and is reproducible on local environments in the worst case. So if we have to switch again, it should just be the matter of executing the bash scripts on a different system. And also we've improved the reporting by just creating files that have reports in it. I will show you in a second then. And also we've improved with artifacts. So what do I mean with artifacts? For instance, our master builds are now no longer stored on Google Cloud, but they are stored in the GitHub Actions tab here on the repository. You can click on CI and select the branch master here, or also release branch if you want. And then you see the last couple of builds that we did on master branch. And this one was 4 hours ago. And if you look at it, you can see there's a prepare step. There is a unit test for the CLI, which is running on macOS and Linux, as far as I know. And then there's a build that runs on macOS, Linux, and Windows. So if you can click on it, you can usually see a little bit more, but the column width is a little bit low. I think I would have to open it and you would see which operating system it is, but doesn't really matter. All you need to know is there's a matrix behind it that says build it on all 3 operating systems. And yeah, then we have unit tests that are executed for the microservices, unit tests that are executed for our UI. And if the unit tests work, we do the Docker builds and upload the Docker images to Docker Hub. And also what we do is we build the Helm chart and we upload the Helm chart as well as the CLI builds here as a GitHub artifact. So if you scroll down, you can see the artifacts. And here you can get the CLI builds, basically the builds from this commit on a master branch. So this is the latest CLI, so to say, and also a Helm chart. And what's interesting with the Helm chart, I want to show you. This one has a values YAML and other, actually values YAML is not the right one. This one has templates. There we go. Control plane templates that I believe use the correct version. No. Was it the values YAML? Anyone knows out of their head where the version is stored for Keptn?
It's in the chart.
Chart YAML.
Chart YAML, yeah. So what we do here is we write the version in here, and this version is actually used for the Docker images within our manifests. And I mean, right now, this is just the 081-dev, but this might as well be 081-dev dot 2021 January 14 17 or 1500, whatever. So this could also be this version. And that means if you download this Helm chart, you could basically install the version that's coming out of this commit. So this will allow us in the future to have better integration tests and also allow us for end users to just download the artifact here and apply it on the clusters. Any questions so far on that?
I mean, only a correction a little bit, because the version is for the Helm chart version, and you have also the app version. And the app version is mostly for the image they use in the new Helm chart.
You're right. That was this one, yeah.
Yeah. Only the mention.
So also the Docker images will have those tags, right?
Yes. So I think it's not this tag. I think it's a dash in between. I need to check, but they have a tag like this. And just one thing to note: we will clean up dev images after 30 days or something. So if you install this on a cluster, it's really for the purpose of testing it right now and not for keeping it forever. All right. The second thing, I've also linked it here. We've also spent some time with integration tests. And as you can see, I've pre-selected integration test here for branch master. You can also just select a release branch here or any other, maybe not the feature branch, to be honest, but the release branch works because we're only testing or because you're only running integration tests right now if the build process has finished before. And the build process essentially, a full build takes about an hour. So we only do those for master and release branches, not for feature branches. Anyway, the integration tests, if you look into them, they are running daily right now on the master branch, and they consist of 5 jobs. And these 5 jobs then end up in a report. It's stating here report to pull request here. This is wrong actually. I need to fix the label. It's right now just a report to artifact, and the end result of the tests is basically stored in this test report. I can show you that in a second. For now, if you click on here, you can see there's multiple tests that are being running. So for instance, we're running a test with Minishift on GitHub. We're running K3S on GitHub in 2 different versions. I can open it up actually so you can see some more details on the test. And what does such a test look like? You see there's different steps, like we're installing and starting K3S. And if you click into this, you basically get the logs of this step. And I need to say this is much nicer than Travis CI, because in Travis CI you just get like a bunch of logs and it's not grouped, and this one is nicely grouped. So for instance, if I'm not interested in the install process, but I want to see what the Kubernetes nodes look like, I have a debug step here that shows me like kubectl described nodes, and then I can easily see the last couple of events that are happening. I can see what's being deployed, the target architecture, for instance, the operating system, and much more down below if you're interested, like how much CPU is requested and what is the limit, or what limits are requested. And I think there's not much more in debug info that's really worth it. But you can see there's more steps like installing Istio, a couple more debug steps, downloading the CLI artifact from master branch. This one is actually an interesting one. So we need to get the latest CLI for this integration test, either from the master branch or the release branch or wherever we are on. And there is like this nice action called download artifact, and we've included it. And basically it downloads the CLI and the Helm chart based on the target branch that we're on. So if we're on the master branch, it uses the last build of the master branch. And if we are on the release branch, it uses the last build from the release branch. And it just goes on. There's a couple tests involved. You can click through it. I'm not going to show it. It's way too much to show. And in the end, we are writing a test report. This is the test report just for this little test. Basically, it is like one line, and it says a couple of successes and one thing that's being skipped. And there is no header here, obviously, so that's not good. But this all comes together in the end in the artifact in here, where you have the final test report stored. And this one is now a markdown file, essentially. So we will be able to upload this to an issue or to a release draft or whatever, and you can show it on GitHub. And it's a table where it says, this is my target platform that I've tested. These are the things that I tested. So Keptn install was successful, Keptn off was successful, and then we have the tests for linking stages, quality gates, self-healing, delivery assistant, and the continuous delivery use case in the end. And obviously, due to your memory and CPU restrictions on GitHub, we cannot run these on GitHub. So we only run the continuous delivery ones here on Google Kubernetes Engine. And if we ever fancy adding any more target platforms, it's really quite easy. So that's also a great success of this change to GitHub Actions, that we have generalized our integration test setup. Okay, any questions on that?
Why does it show errors?
That's a good point. So there's two questions you would need to ask. One, why does it show errors? And two, why is it still green? So if you want to run all integration tests in parallel or even afterwards, doesn't matter, and one of them has an error, GitHub will cancel all the others. Doesn't matter if they're running in parallel or afterwards, it will just cancel them. So the first thing you need to do, you need to say you're not allowing failures, or in other words, you're skipping failures. It doesn't matter. So it's green. That's a little bit bad, but at the same time, it prints out all the errors, if there are any, in the end report here. So here you can see on Minishift, there is an error where it says checking source expected Lighthouse service got empty string. And we could now dig deeper by clicking here and see where it appears. So this is basically, these are all the errors that happened, and this would help us nailing down the errors actually. And yeah, at the same time, we also say continue on error because we want this report to be generated in the end. So for instance, this error here on minishift means if we look at the final test report, it should say that something failed on minishift. And indeed, it actually did. So here we have a failure on minishift. This is, I think the quality gates test is failing on minishift for quite some time. Does this answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly they need an orange button. So orange is for mitigation between green and red. So when a failure happens, to be allowed.
Yeah, it would be nice if it has like a warning sign or whatever, but yeah. I think in the future we will use this report and generate a nicer overview page. Okay, then let's skip this next thing, the Keptn service template. I'll talk about it next week anyway. Last thing, the quick start that I mentioned before got updated. So previously you had to write this command and then sudo -e bash if you wanted to install Keptn CLI via this quick start and you didn't fancy using brew or any other tools. This is now working without sudo. That's the first update. It's calling sudo in the script. So if you look in the script, you will see that sudo is being called. It's actually being checked that it is available. And if not, we will exit with an error message. And yeah, the second thing, this has been working before, but I just want to mention it again. If you want to install a Keptn version that's not the latest stable version, you can influence the script by just saying which version you want. And yeah, this works now also for 080 alpha, which we released on the last day in last year. And last but not least, we're also supporting the target architecture parameter here now. For now, only AMD 64 or 64-bit architectures on Intel and AMD CPUs work. But in the future, obviously, for macOS and for Linux, we want to build ARM 64 even. And then this is something that you can specify here if you want to. If you don't specify it, it's automatically determined using a system command. But this also means by the fact that it's automatically determined, if you don't specify it and you run it on an ARM Mac right now, I'm not sure if it actually works. If I have a fallback in, let me check. No, I don't think it actually works. So when it tries to download a file that doesn't exist because we don't have the architecture, it basically tells you an error occurred. So, but this is, in my opinion, this is fine because once we release the next version, I'm pretty sure we will have the target architecture set. Just one thing to keep in mind, I don't think the target architecture is supported before Keptn 08. So with 07, we just always download the AMD 64 build and it will or will not work depending on your architecture. All right. Any questions on that? If not, I'll hand over to Florian.
All right, thank you, Christian. Pretty cool stuff you showed us here today. Let me just share my screen. All right, today I want to show you two pull requests. So the first one is about the Helm service. So the Helm service, when every time it deploys a new artifact or applies a configuration change for a certain service, it will add the deployment URI for that service and include it in the deployment.finished event. This information is needed, for example, by the JMeter service, which will need how to access the service and then execute the performance tests about that. And up until now, this deployment URL was composed using a fixed scheme. So within the service, we do have the availability to specify the ingress protocol. So for example, HTTP or HTTPS. Then the service, project, and stage are figured out by the Helm service when it retrieves the deployment or triggered event for that service of the project in a certain stage. And then also the ingress hostname and ingress port can be specified as an environment for the Helm service. And yeah, then it deploys the service. And that's how the deployment URL looked. And then Christian came up with the idea of an enhancement to make that URL configurable for that URL by defining a hostname template environment variable where you can use those parameters or environment variables and basically use that variable to specify the format of the deployment URL yourself. And basically that's what has been done in this pull request. So now it will not use this fixed scheme, but whatever you have defined in this environment variable, if you have defined something. Of course, it's also backwards compatible. So if you do not want to specify that variable yourself, it will go back to this fixed scheme as a fallback.
So the idea behind this actually was not to just make this customizable, because why the hell do you need this customizable, right? Just to mention this, if you want a wildcard SSL certificate, you cannot have a double wildcard. So you cannot have ****somehost.com. It's just not possible, or at least not easily possible. So if you replace this little dot by a dash, you've solved this problem. And this now means you can have a wildcard certificate for your Keptn installation if you want.
Exactly, yeah. So that's the main reasoning behind this. All right. Are there any other questions about that? If not, I will continue with the next one. So this is about the configuration service, and it's get projects response. So this is a very little extension. So as you might know, we do have this /project API endpoint on the configuration service, which will respond with a list of available projects within your Keptn installation. So all projects you have created and also the service within that project. And the requirement for this issue here was since we are introducing a new shipyard version, and when you want to use or want to continue to use your project after you will have upgraded to Keptn 0.8, you will also need to upgrade the shipyard file for that particular project. And therefore, to make it easier to track which projects are updated already and which projects are not, we introduced a new property to this get project payload, which is called the shipyard version. And as the name suggests, it will tell you the shipyard version of that particular project. So for example, if you haven't updated the project yet, that version will be set to 0.1.7. And after you have upgraded it, you will get the version 0.2.0. And this will allow you to keep track of what project you will need to upgrade and what not. Yeah, it's a very small extension, but are there any questions about that?
Should we, or do we actually show this in the CLI when we do Keptn get project? So should we create an issue for that?
Not yet. That's a good point. We do need to create another issue for that.
I'll create an issue.
Perfect.
And maybe that information is also interesting to be shown in the bridge.
Absolutely.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I'll also create an issue for that. We'll need to figure out where exactly.
Yeah. All right, those are the 2 pull requests I wanted to show you. Also, let's have a quick look at the working items. I think there are 1 or 2 bug fixes that I've worked on. So, okay, this one is still on the review. So there was a memory leak in the shipyard controller, but that's solved, hopefully, with the PR I made. And yeah, here are the two bugs I fixed. So the first one is about the Keptn CLI. So there was a change recently that allowed you to specify the kubeconfig environment variable, and then the CLI will use that to determine the current Kubernetes context you're connected to, and use that to switch between the Keptn installation if that new Kubernetes context happens to be on a different cluster than you're currently connected to. This is a really cool feature, but there was an error when that environment variable wasn't set correctly. So for example, when it was pointing to a file that didn't exist, this caused the CLI to crash. And here we wanted to basically, as a fallback, continue with the logic we previously had in place, where we didn't use this environment variable. So in that case, if the file under this variable can't be found, it will simply proceed with executing the Keptn command on the cluster you are currently connected to, or on the Keptn's API you are currently connected to. And the other one, yeah, so this one was a bug in the configuration service. So when you executed a Keptn update project in order to provide upstream credentials to a project script repository, and that upstream repository was not available for some reason, the whole process failed. But in the information about the project, the upstream repository was still defined as an upstream. So that wrong URL you specified, for example, was visible in the bridge, in the UI, and also persisted in the materialized view. And with that fix, I've made a change to revert all the changes that have been made to the upstream repository. So for example, if there haven't been an upstream repository for that project, it will simply delete the created credentials and also clean up the information about that in the materialized view, and afterwards it will be empty again. And in case you did have a working upstream repository before executing the command with the wrong information, the previous credentials will be restored again. And also in the materialized view, the value of the upstream repository URL will be set to the previous working version. And I think that's it from my side. Any other questions about that? If not, I will hand over to Ermin.
Thank you very much, Florian. I'm going to present one pull request today. It's the new sequence screen in the bridge. It's just a preview what is coming in Keptn 08. And yeah, here we have now a new sequences screen where you see all the sequences that are executed in your on your Keptn installation. And just to demonstrate it a little bit better, I will send in a new artifact and show you a live demo what it looks like. When you open the sequences screen, you see all the sequences that were executed. Here are some information still missing because we have separate issues to show more details here on this tile about the sequence. For example, which services is affected, when it was started, how long it took, and so on. But one thing that you already see now here is you see a ongoing task, so the deployment, and as long as it's ongoing, so it started, it's showing that it's ongoing, and when it's finished, then you will see here the status if it was finished successfully or with an error. For example, here a few minutes ago, I sent in an artifact delivery, and you see the deployment, then the test, evaluation, and release step was executed here. And you see also ongoing steps. So for example, when the deployment, as if it was now, takes longer, you see it's still ongoing, for example. You can filter your sequences here on the left side by this 4 types: service, stage, sequence, and status. For example, I can say, give me only the active sequences which are currently ongoing. And more details actually are going to come here in these views. Are there any questions?
Cool. I see you also changed the naming of the events, or at least you automated the naming of the events, right? So it's no longer sh.keptn.event. whatever.
Yes, I take just the part between sh Keptn event and the .finished, .triggered, .started, or .finished. So that part is shown here as type of the event.
It's also grouped, is it? Because there is no started, finished, triggered. There's just
That's
one.
it. That's also the thing. So I group it based on this starting key. And if there is just a triggered event, it would show that it's triggered and like waiting. As soon as I get the started event, it shows this loading indicator, which will be also animated in the final version. And when it's finished, then we show it either green or red icon with the status of that event.
That's cool. Nice. You still need a review for this, right?
There is a pull request open for this one, and I'm waiting for a review. But as you see, this is still in development, so a lot of details are missing here still, which is coming in the next weeks. That's from my side, actually, if there are no more questions.
Right. Thanks. I think we're through with everything on the agenda. Anyone has anything to add? If not, thank you everyone for your contributions and for your time. And see you next week then.
Cool. See you. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.